This is the number one thing that keeps people stuck and unable to move on after a breakup. I'm Cole, I help people through breakups and divorce. This is my beautiful wife, Jocelyn. And to introduce the topic, we're gonna start out with some stories from our own lives to give some background.
I was married for 2.5 years, and I've been divorced now for about 2 years. And in the beginning of my relationship, our dating life was pretty rocky, and then throughout our marriage, it just got a lot rockier as it went on. My husband had some personal things that he struggled with that led me to feel really insecure and really controlling and have a lot of anxiety, which led to a lot of fights in our marriage and just a lot of ups and downs. It was a roller coaster. And so it just kind of built up over time, and then we ended up getting divorced.
I was married for about 2.5 years too, and we both got married when we were pretty young, so it came with like a lot of fights that I think a lot of young people would have, like not knowing how to communicate. And that eventually led to a really sudden divorce. It was around like Valentine's Day, which was really hard, but she came home and said that we were getting divorced, and I tried to save it for a couple of days, but it was very quick, and in a matter of weeks we were divorced. Through our experiences and also talking to hundreds of other people through their divorces and breakups, we've discovered that the number one thing that keeps people stuck is either not forgiving themselves or not forgiving their partner. The hardest part for me was that I held on to everything. I considered myself this devil that ruined an angel's life. And I felt like if I continued to punish myself in my brain, that it would somehow make it okay. And that made forgiving myself almost impossible.
In the beginning, it was really hard for me to forgive my ex-husband because of the betrayal that I experienced and just focusing so much on how he hurt me and the things that he did that led me to feel so bad about myself. It was really, really hard to find forgiveness and not hold on to that anger that I felt.
A lot of people hold on to forgiveness and don't give it either to their ex or to themselves because they feel like it's some form of justice.
So over time, Cole and I have had a lot of conversations about the topic of forgiveness, just because he's talking to so many people and then we're talking about our own experiences. And through that, we kind of came up with an analogy that we feel like really shows like how forgiveness can keep you stuck.
If you're having a hard time with forgiveness, you can imagine that you're stuck in a prison with an open door that's being guarded by a representation of either you or your ex, whoever you're having a harder time forgiving. And that version of them is a version that you created in your own mind. And oftentimes it's a much worse version than ever even existed. And while you're in that prison, you have to keep reliving over and over again the worst parts of that relationship. You're continually tortured by either what they did to you or what you think you did to them. And you might have made a ton of changes to yourself over this time. And the craziest part is your ex might have even changed. They might not even be that person that hurt you anymore. Maybe they completely turned their life around and now they're with someone else and they're not hurting them the way that they hurt you. But because you won't let go of it, you have to continue reliving and rehashing those same painful experiences every day in that prison cell.
And also over time, the prison guard almost gets worse. Like as the days go on and as you rehash it over and over in your brain, the prison guard becomes more evil and more destructive than they were in the beginning. So because you continue to live in the prison, in order for your brain to feel okay in the prison, you have to further the character arc of the prison guard and almost make them worse than they were even in reality.
You can start to live in this false reality that's almost like a time warp, where you're so stuck in the past because of how strong that prison guard is that you don't walk past them and walk out of the open cell. We were both trapped in those prisons, and forgiveness is how we got out, and this is how we did it.
The first step for me was viewing my ex as a human, not a villain. Meaning that I tried to view him in a more real sense and not so much a fictional sense. I feel like a lot of people look at their exes and they're like, oh my gosh, they were out to get me, or they like had these malicious intentions in their behavior, which I don't think is true in all cases. I think in some cases it can be, but at least for my case, my ex-husband was really broken and had a lot of hurt. And so viewing him from that angle really helped me to step forward towards forgiveness when it was hard before. Because I was able to view him this way, it made it so much easier for me to have compassion on him and to feel like I could understand where he was coming from a lot better, which took away the power that he had in my brain over me. Ultimately, that led me to the conclusion that he was a regular person who makes mistakes, which took away the power that he had over my self-worth and my progression.
On my side, I had no problem forgiving other people. I was so trapped in not forgiving myself that I didn't even think that had to be done. The first thing that helped me was listing out what I actually did and what I didn't do, because I found that I was taking accountability for a lot of things that they did to me. The second thing was keeping it in context, meaning that if you're in a really stressful situation, like someone's yelling at you and then you say something mean to them, that's different than if you just said something mean to them unprovoked. That context really matters. And then finally, the thing that made the biggest difference was me realizing that forgiveness is a free gift that you can give anybody, and that extends to yourself. It's not something that needs to be earned from anybody. I realized that there's nothing that past me could do to come back and repay current me or repay my exes to atone for his sins. They were done. So the choice was either to offer forgiveness and then get better and start enjoying life again, or just to continue punishing myself without end, which isn't really justice if you think about it. It's a common trap for people to get into, to think that if they continue punishing themselves, it'll make it okay. If I beat myself up enough, maybe my ex will forgive me or come back. But it doesn't actually work. The only thing that happens is you just keep suffering over and over.
The really hard part of this is that many of you will never get forgiveness from your ex or an apology from your ex. I never got an apology from my ex, and that didn't stop me from being able to progress and forgive despite that apology. Forgiveness comes from you and you alone, and you can do that without involving your ex at all, or even telling them that you forgive them.
Forgiveness doesn't require your ex's involvement at all. It's simply you walking past that prison guard and exiting the prison.
A lot of you have been through really hard things, and those things can be really hard to heal from. They're legitimate and they're 100% not your fault. But no one has the power to destroy your life. If I would have stayed a victim in my life, I would have never been able to move forward, and I would have never been able to heal.
Forgiving someone doesn't mean that you don't need to have boundaries with them going forward, though. Forgiving them does not ever mean that you have to let them into that same place they used to hold in your life. You don't have to forget, and you don't have to unlearn all of the lessons that you learned because of this pain. In summary, get started by deciding to forgive. Make a list of what was realistically your fault and your partner's fault in the relationship, and then view yourself and your partner both as people who make mistakes. Then make the decision that whatever happened, you're going to let go of it, not because anyone deserves it, but because you want to stop living in the pain of the past.
And lastly, remember that forgiveness is not going to be a one-time thing. You will probably have to forgive multiple times little things that pop into your head that are painful as you continue to move forward towards healing. But over time, as you work through those little moments of forgiveness, you will reach ultimate forgiveness and be able to move forward and find more happiness than you had before.
That's the number one thing we saw holding us back and all of the people that we've coached. And if you want more help through your breakup or divorce, click subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.